So now we're going to start with the first unit, and as I told you, the first unit talks about what is linguistics, okay? What is linguistics? And the outline of this unit, as I already mentioned before when talking about the syllabus, is as follows. So we'll talk about, I'm going to go through some kind of introduction to show you the things we're going to cover. What is applied linguistics? We're going to try to come up with an answer for this question. What is applied linguistics? History of applied linguistics, how historically speaking this discipline existed, started, and it developed, and the schools, how it developed. Some subfields of applied linguistics. We will try to mention some subfields, okay, disciplines that are belonging or that belong to applied linguistics. On the interdisciplinary nature of applied linguistics and relevance to language teaching. So we'll come back to this issue. I have already mentioned to you that applied linguistics is some kind of interdisciplinary because you have a number of disciplines that come together and interact in the field of applied linguistics. We will finish with a conclusion, summary, and then a list of references and on which this lecture was based, and for you in case you want to read more in addition to the book. So this course is very interesting in the sense that it cuts across various disciplines and different areas of human endeavor. This is related to the interdisciplinary nature of applied linguistics. It is very important as a field. Why? Because it touches on different disciplines. So you start with linguistics and you go into society, you go into psychology, you go into law, you go into computers, you go into many other disciplines, and in somehow this makes sense. The field of applied linguistics makes a lot of sense. If you just take linguistics or the core linguistics branches by themselves, yes, they are interesting, they are very interesting, very crucial. But are they the only thing we should focus on, we should learn about? No. Because a human being is not only this. A human being is a psychology, a human being is a society, and in this society you have different things. You have computers, you have legal, you have whatever kind of other factors and variables. And that's how the field of applied linguistics is quite interesting. Okay? Because it helps solve a lot of problems related to the applications of language. Applications of language. And when we talk about applications of language, we start with language learning, different things, language acquisition, second language acquisition, language learning and language acquisition. And then you move into speaking in society, sociolinguistics, how society impacts our language use. You have there some variables related to age, gender, urban versus rural environment, etc., etc. So that's how the field of applied linguistics is really much more important than the field of, or the core linguistics branches, like linguistics, phonology, phonetics, and so on and so forth. These are important, as I mentioned, so that nobody tells me, no, they are important, but they are not enough. We have to go beyond that and go beyond language per se into other variables related to society, psychology, and so on and so forth. As a language student, you need to know all these areas because you are belonging to the department of English and because you have chosen to be specialized in linguistics. You need to know this, okay? You don't need to focus only on the core branches of linguistics, but you need to go beyond that and study, okay, other disciplines that go beyond language per se globally gathered within the field of applied linguistics. You need to know all these areas so that you can be exposed to how language can be applied to these areas. How language is applied in terms of language use, in terms of language learning, in terms of language teaching. I repeat this. Applications of language can be categorized into these three. How language is used, and that's where you have society, sociolinguistics, pragmatics, etc., psycholinguistics. How language is learned, language learning theories, language acquisition, first, second, etc., etc., learning styles, and how language is taught. And these three parameters summarize for us the main issues dealt with within the field of applied linguistics. Okay? Now, so, and for you specialized, as I was telling you, in the field of linguistics, you need to know this branch, okay? It's a very important branch for you to learn. And the one thing I have to emphasize here is that what we are going to cover in class is that it is kind of introductory. It's kind of introduction to applied linguistics, okay? It's a kind of introduction, and what you need to do is try to read more. It means that every part of this course is introductory, and for you to do an in-depth study, you need to go through the references I'm mentioning for you at the end of every unit. You already have some references at the end of every unit, and of course you can use the booklets and the different types of booklets and this book in order to really deepen and improve your understanding of the field, okay? Because this is an issue. Usually students, they come and they do class and I want to understand applied linguistics really well. No, it's unfeasible because you only have 2 classes and already you are starting late, so that's another issue. So you need to go and rely on yourself if you want to really master somehow, not to master perfectly, but master somehow this field of applied linguistics. Scholars who have worked in applied linguistics have noted that it often deals with solving or at least ameliorating social problems involving language. This is now we're starting defining the field of applied linguistics. Applied linguistics deals with solving, at least ameliorating social problems involving language. Social problems involving language. Please, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, can you just listen? Because I get disturbed and I want to. Are you in this group? Yes. So you stay, please. You stay. We're going to finish early. You are going to finish early because somebody's going to die or somebody's going to. Yeah, you're going to die or. Huh? Please, I'm going to ask you. Please, you stay. Will you finish class and then you can leave? Because we have to put some order, okay? If you do it, another one is going to do it. Etc. Very soon we're going to finish, not very long, okay? Now, this is it's about applied linguistics. This unit is designed to take you through a brief history of applied linguistics. This unit, as I told you, it's going to help you to go with you through a history of how applied linguistics started and how it developed. Its development over the years, and the work of a few people who have contributed a lot to the development of applied linguistics. So we're going to learn about the people who advocated, who started the field of applied linguistics, because always there are leaders, okay, who start things and then the others follow and belong to the discipline. So we'll learn about the main figures who started the field of applied linguistics and contributed a lot to the development of the field of applied linguistics. It could be people, okay, or it could be associations, as we're going to see later. Many people have defined or described applied linguistics, and some of their definitions will also be presented. And then after going on, we will go through definitions, the main definitions that are in the literature, about applied linguistics. So we'll try different definitions and see what is common between them. These definitions will give you an idea of what applied linguistics entails and the various areas of language endeavor it covers. Okay? What is the meaning? These definitions will help you understand what is the meaning of applied linguistics and will help you understand and know the various areas, okay, where language is impacted or it impacts society, psychology, etc., etc. And the questions that applied linguistics tries to answer are as follows. These are the questions that, and you can take notes of this, okay? This is the questions that applied linguistics tries to answer as follows. How can we teach language better? How can we teach language better? What type of individual differences do we have in language learning? What type of individual differences do we have in language learning? Well, I prefer that just keep talking. You are going to have everything later if you want to go quickly. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah. So just you can have. You are going to have everything PDF or the booklet. Actually, the same. Okay. I just organized it in the form of a PowerPoint for me, to help me with my teaching. Okay. So, what type of individual differences do we have in language learning? What are the social influences that affect language learning? And that's why the units we are covering here, they are organized on this basis. Okay? What are the social influences that affect language learning? How can we write a valid language examination? Language assessment. One of the main branches of applied linguistics is language assessment. How can we write a valid language examination? This we will see next semester, not now, because now you need to start with the basics and then move into the specialized areas. How can we best advise a Ministry of Education officials or curriculum planners and other stakeholders in Education Ministry on the content of language curriculum for various groups of people and communities? Now, on the basis of the research done, these applied linguists, they try to come up with a number of recommendations for the ministry officials or the educators or whatever involved in education. They give them advice on how to improve curriculum, because the curriculum is not just a simple word. You see, a simple word in terms of one word, but in terms of its meaning, it's a lot of things. It includes educational psychology, it includes language teaching theories, skills, and so on, so assessment. So on the basis of research in these fields, language learning, social, individual in terms of learning, language teaching, etc., these applied linguists try to come up with advice for officials to improve curriculum, okay, for the different groups of people and communities. And in this context, I want you somehow to go beyond Morocco when talking about applied linguistics, especially when we go to the area of history. I want to go to history and development of applied linguistics. It started in the UK, in Europe, and in England, Australia, Canada. I want to go beyond Morocco and try to keep in your mind these communities and what happened especially if you take United States of America. You know that, or Australia, for example. Australia, you know that Europeans went there. The United States of America, same thing. Europeans went there, and when they went there, there were these aboriginals, the inhabitants of the United States and Australia. So they faced issues because these people are coming with English and they are the dominant. But they face issues related to these communities. How are we going to teach them English? So that's how things started in terms of applied linguistics, history of applied linguistics. So that's why I recommend for you to always keep in your mind this scope in terms of communities. Go beyond Morocco and keep in your mind these communities when they started. Europe, Britain. Now, Britain, you know that Britain is mostly migrants, okay? Yeah, there are Europeans, but it's becoming more immigrants. So these immigrants are coming from Pakistan, India, Somalia, the Arab countries, North Africa countries. So when they go there, so the dominant language is English. What happens? is that there are issues posed for these people. So how are we going to deal with them? So that's how language learning theory started, and language teaching, etc., etc. So keep in mind this scope. Different communities, not only Morocco. Of course, Morocco is part of it because we have somehow the same thing. Now, for example, we have the issue related to Amazigh. This is an issue. So we have, now they are starting to develop curriculums. Okay? For this, so this is part of applied linguistics. So they try to solve problems related to applications of language. Okay, how are we going to teach the Amazigh? They want their language to be taught in school. How are we going to do that? So they have the Royal Erkam. So they start coming up with number of research and go into the field and try to come up with a good curriculum that hopefully will improve. Okay, though there are problems there, but that's another issue. In short, applied linguistics is interested mainly in language problems. Language problems, language use, in terms of language use, in terms of language learning, in terms of language teaching. Okay? All the areas mentioned above and some other relevant issues will be discussed in this course. This is the main aim of this course, because now today we're just starting. As a result of these, you need to go through all the units, of course, and we are going to do this together. But hopefully you can read more in order to maximally benefit from the course. However, the first unit, as mentioned above, deals essentially, this first unit, which is today, we are just going to focus with definition and then historical development of applied linguistics. And below are the objectives. So by the end of this unit today, hopefully you should be able to first give various definitions of applied linguistics by the end of this unit. And second, describe how applied linguistics became a discipline. And here we're talking about historical development. Nice? What is applied linguistics? Some of the questions that I mentioned already, I have already talked about these questions in the introduction, but I will repeat them here because we're teaching. One of the main things about teaching, you have to know this, is repetition. So the more you repeat for the students, the better for the students. Some of the questions that people ask, or specialized people, experts in the field of applied linguistics, they ask are the following. What kind of language should be the language of instruction in schools? This is an issue in Morocco, yes? This is an issue. This is applied linguistics. This is the field of applied linguistics. This is a language problem. It has nothing to do with phonology. Yeah, not nothing. It has something to do with phonology, but it can't help. Phonology alone can't help answer this question. Phonetics alone can't help answer this question. It except for morphology, syntax. Right? So this is applied linguistics. What kind of language should be the language of instruction in schools? Okay? Same thing is applicable to teaching English. Now, for example, in high school, you remember you had teachers talking in French sometimes. And is this a good thing or a bad thing? So that's a language problem. So there are a lot of things said in that regard. So that's the field of applied linguistics. Applied linguistics tries to answer such questions. What are the procedures for the choice of a language where there are many languages? What are these procedures that are going to rely on in order to choose one language among others? It's not because of the beauty of the phonology of this language that I'm going to choose this language rather than that one. It's not because of the beauty of syntax of this language that I'm going to choose this language and let down the other. Because all languages are good. All languages are beautiful. There is no language ugly, language beautiful. No, this is a misconception about language. So what is the reason in that regard? What we should rely on in that regard has to do with society. Prestige, and the people who are in power. You have sociolinguistics. That's, policy, language. Language planning, by the way, policy is part of applied linguistics. I'm not mentioning it here. I would be good for me to mention it and deal with it in this semester. But it's not possible to cover it in this semester. It will be covered in the next semester, okay? Because this is what we can cover in the time left for you. So language planning, that's applied linguistics, okay? How can we have valid language tests? Assessment. Assessment is not an easy issue. You just come and then you do an assessment. No, it is a field, has got its own theories, principles, and so on and so forth. Many people have tried to define or describe what applied linguistics is. Let me correct a small mistake here. What applied linguistics is below, and now I'm going to mention to you some of the definitions that are in the literature that try to define applied linguistics. Brumfitt, 1977, he states that applied linguistics is the theoretical and empirical investigation of real-world problems in which language is a central issue. Language planning, language of instruction. How to teach a language, which language should be the language of instruction. Okay, etc., etc. So those are real-world problems in which language is a central issue. That's one definition of applied linguistics. Another one by Gray, 2000, he proposes that the focus of applied linguistics is on trying to resolve language-based problems. Language-based problems. Problems in society, problems in teaching, problems in law, problems in technology, okay? Related to language. Language is a central issue in that. That people encounter in the real world. I'll give you an example for syntax, for instance. Now, especially with the generative model and government unbinding theory, etc. Now, what do these syntacticians do? They just sit at home, and then they have language in books, etc., in their mind, and so on. They take a piece of language, and they start analyzing that piece of language. There is no problem there. And we have nothing, applications or something, okay? Just because the syntax, especially these generatives, they are talking about, dreaming about this universal grammar which exists in the mind. They are not involved with performance, okay? Now, so this is not really applied linguistics. This is syntax, yeah. But applied linguistics, tries to resolve language-based problems that people encounter in the real world, whether they be learners. These people can be the learners. They face problems related to their learning in terms of language. Teachers, supervisors, academics, lawyers, service providers, those who need social services, test makers, policy developers, dictionary makers, translators, or a whole range of clients, other clients. So you can see, resolve language-based problems that people, and these are the people, encounter in the real world, depending on their field. People who are in law, people who are in teaching, people who are in translation, people who are in computer and technology and language. So this is another definition, and as you can see, there is the repetition of one thing. Yes, this is solving problems that people encounter in the real world, problems related to language that people encounter in the real world. Grabe knows that distinguishing between what linguistics and applied linguistics are concerned with is to distinguish between theory and practice. Core linguistics and applied linguistics is distinguishing between two things, between theory and practice. Applied linguistics, we focus more on the practice, how language is used, how language is learned, and how language is thought. Okay? According to Smith and Moshia 2002, another definition, applied linguistics uses what we know about language. Applied linguistics uses what we know about language, how it is learned, and how it is used in order to achieve some purpose or solve problems in the real world. So again, you have a problem. And this applied linguists, they use language, how it is learned, how it is used, in order to achieve or solve problems. These two people also note that traditionally the primary concerns of applied linguistics have been second language acquisition theory. These are the primary concerns of this language, of this applied linguistics. Second language acquisition theory, second language pedagogy, and the interface between the two. In some point in time, as we're going to see, and some schools, when we're going to see in a historical development of applied linguistics, at some point there is focus on language learning, language teaching. Other points there is the focus on applications and problems in the real world, society, etc., etc. Okay, so and this is the note that we try to attract our attention to. Next. Davis and Elder 2006 note the following about applied linguistics. They say, in our view, applied linguistics is a coherent activity that theorizes through speculative and empirical investigations real-world problems in which language is a central issue. They theorize, give theories, explanations, via empirical investigations. For example, if you go to the learning theory of behaviorism, the dog, that's an empirical investigation, and he's come up with the idea of stimulus and response theory, okay, for learning a language, right? So this is how applied linguistics come. So this is the focus of Davis and Elder in 2006. They don't really focus on they focus on the content or the purpose of applied linguistics, but they also try to draw our attention how those ideas that people applied linguists come up with, how do they come? They theorize via speculative and empirical investigations for real world problems. Yeah, that's because one of the chapters that we normally should cover, we will see later on, is about research in applied linguistics. Okay, so that's how research is done. So you have a theory, and then speculation, empirical investigation, you have data, and then you start analyzing the data, and then you come up with solutions for those problems that you investigate. And in all these real-world problems, language is a central issue. It's a focal point, but of course, in relation to other spheres of life. The history, so we'll move on to talking about history of applied linguistics. So the term applied linguistics, which refers to the application of linguistics to the study and improvement of language teaching, language learning, language planning, management of language defects, communication between groups, lexicography, translations, etc., owes its origin to U.S. language teaching programs during and after the Second World War. Language teaching programs in the US, okay, during and after the Second World War. So there were some problems related to this, and that's why I told you, when studying and thinking about applied linguistics, you need to go beyond Morocco and take into account the whole other communities. So now, the Second World War and First War, after that, there is lots of immigration, and there lots of immigrants in the States, coming from Argentina, from the original inhabitants of the States. So how are we going to teach them? There are issues related to teaching them language. So that's how the discussion about applied linguistics, there is a problem, and the main focus in that problem is related to language. So how are we going to deal with that, especially with focus on language teaching and language learning and language teaching? So the beginnings of applied linguistics go back to the origins, or go back to the US language teaching programs during and after the Second World War. According to Grab in 2002, it was largely based on Leonard Bloomfield's outline guide for the practical study of foreign languages. Bloomfield, you have heard about Bloomfield, I suppose. Don't tell me you haven't heard about Bloomfield. Bloomfield? Okay. Anyway, so I'm not going to go there, but the thing I'm going to focus on is this, which was said to be influenced by the early European advocates of the direct method, in particular Henry Sweets. Now, this is related to Bloomfield taxonomy. Has got a taxonomy. It has to do with learning, okay? It has to do with learning, and he proposes this taxonomy in order to help improve learning of a language in general. So, according to Greb 2002, he says that these beginnings that were in the United States of applied linguistics, okay, during and after the Second World War, I mean, that was not the real beginning. The beginning was due to Bloomfield and some European notions. And that's normal, because everything really started in Europe, in essence, and then developed later on in the States or in the UK, or etc. Okay? Now, this is the point here. The history of applied linguistics can be discussed in different countries, as noted by Gray in the next paragraph, because depending on the countries, the historical development of applied linguistics has to do with different places. Okay? Mainly the United States, the UK, Canada, Australia, as we're going to see in the following. In America, 1948, this is how things are beginning, because they noticed problems related to language learning, language teaching for the immigrants, minorities, etc. So that's how the scientists or the researchers in the field of linguistics, they started feeling the need for going beyond language. And that's how applied linguistics. Now, these people in America, in the United States of America, in 1948, they held or they organized a conference. They organized a conference at that time, and it was all about discussing these language issues, these problems, real-world problems that have a relationship with language. Language is a central issue in these language problems, especially in terms of language teaching, language learning. Okay? There are names in here. I'm not going to make it longer for you, but you can have the names people who organized the conference and where. So it was organized by Charles Fries, among others, Kenneth Pike and Freeman at the University of Michigan to disseminate information and work about Fries at Fries English Language Institute. So the Fries English Language Institute, they did research about these problems, and then these people I mentioned to you, they organized this conference in order to disseminate these research and discussion about these real language problems related to language learning and teaching in the States at that time, 1948. At that conference, a quarter now, as a result of the conference, because this is one of the things you have to learn about a conference. Usually a conference, when it is organized, it needs to be followed by the publication of the presentations that were in that conference. So what they did after this conference, they published a quarterly, that was the first quarterly, titled Language Learning. Titled Language Learning, the first quarter, that's the proceedings. It's a kind of book, and in this book, because in a conference, what do you have? You have different researchers coming to present their findings. Each one presents his article, paper, okay? And then these papers are collected, edited, organized in the form of a book, okay? And then, so that's how one of the beginnings of applied linguistics. In Britain, another way, another direction, another beginning of applied linguistics as well, a school of applied linguistics was established. Other people in Britain, they were also involved in discussing these real-world problems related to language, okay? And they established, okay, a school of applied linguistics that was established by Cartford at the University of Edinburgh in 1956. And the Center of Applied Linguistics was set up in Washington, D.C. and the Charles Ferguson in 1959. So that's how things are developing. Now, going forward and back between the States and Britain. Because there is interaction going on, discussion going on, okay? And there is also mainly competition between the researchers. Each one wants to adopt, because when you know, it's like a business. When you see that a business is booming, so what do? You try to do business as well, like those people who are doing business. So it's somehow similar. Okay, so please notice that there is a very interesting need in this regard, in discussing problems related to language learning, language teaching. So everybody wanted to, let's go beyond. Let's forget a little bit about syntax, phonetics, and go beyond into a new field that they have entitled as language learning or applied linguistics, School of Applied Linguistics, etc., etc. It has been noted that similar institutes have been set up in various parts of the world. So, various parts of the world, the same thing happened, okay? Britain, UK, and America, and other places we're going to see. Grab noted that national associations, now another way how things have developed. So, you have the first way, conferences, schools, etc., and then you have associations. Grab noted that national associations of applied linguistics came together in 1964 to form the Association Internationale de Linguistique Appliquée, Europe. First, in 1964. Association Internationale de Linguistique Appliquée. Still, okay, working. This association holds a 4-yearly international congress with published proceedings. So this association, they are still working. So what they do, they organize a congress every 4 years. Every 4 years they organize a congress. Congress somehow is really bigger than a conference. Conference could be small, okay? But Congress is a really big one with published proceedings again. They publish the works that were presented and the research that was presented in that quarterly. Davis and Elder, 2006, commented on a symposium held at the American Association, or another association. American, you see, competition going on between these schools, okay, Europe and States. So, American Association of Applied Linguistics, AL, AAAL, okay, L, in St. Louis in the year 2001, where the history of applied linguistics was conducted in 4 different countries. Angeles, 2001, discussing the USA proposed a 4-fold division of the history since. So now there is a discussion also. Okay, who began the thing? So everyone wants to adopt that I was the beginner. So there was a discussion in this regard as well. So Angeles, 2001, discussing the USA and the USA School of Applied Linguistics, a 4-fold division of the history since 1920s. The history was summarized according to this guy. He summarized the history and the historical development of applied linguistics as follows. Applied linguistics in North America does have, and this sounds somehow more reasonable, somehow more realistic. The applied linguistics in North America, United States of America and Canada somehow, does have identifiable roots in linguistics. Identifiable roots in linguistics. Because there is linguistics. We are not forgetting about linguistics, okay? While North American applied linguistics has evolved over time in its orientation and scope, so has North American linguistics. So, North American applied linguistics, it has been developing, changing in terms of focus, in terms of procedures, and how to do the work. Same thing for North American linguistics per se. Now, there is this North American applied linguistics, and there's North American linguistics. We shouldn't forget that. Things were going together. So, up to now, linguistics is still developing. It doesn't mean that it's stopped, dead, the core branches of linguistics. Okay? A significant amount of work directed to real-world issues involving language can be attributed to leading North American linguistics. So he says that, let's give credit to these guys. In North America, they maybe sounded like the best. They were more involved in starting applied linguistics. Because of the work, in terms of work, we publish, okay, in terms of work and research and proceedings published. Much of what can now be seen as groundbreaking applied linguistics type activity was carried out prior to the formal appearance of applied linguistics. Yeah, that's. Of course, one main characteristic of applied linguistics is that there is a gradual move away from the central focus on linguistics. There is a gradual move away, we are moving away from focus on pure linguistics. This is a very a high feature in the historical development of applied linguistics. There is a movement away from the central focus on linguistics per se. Angelus notes that until the 1990s, there were a lot of language activities without much reference to linguistics. Because in this historical development, moving away from linguistics to applied linguistics, now there's a lot of work that focuses on things not really linguistics per se. They start talking about gender, they start talking about anxiety, they start talking about motivation, they start talking about learning styles, they start talking about many other things. And these are not really linguistics per se. Okay, so that's what's the point here. Angelus notes that until the 1990s, there were a lot of language activities without much reference to linguistics, without much. It doesn't mean it disappeared totally, but there isn't a big reference to linguistics. It was much later that scholars saw the need to link all these language activities to linguistics in terms of their applications. So, at some point in time, in terms of this historical development, so somehow there was a kind of wave, as between quotes, like if they are going to forget altogether about linguistics and just focus on those variables, etc. But at some point in time, they come up to the conclusion that, no, that's not true. We can't really forget about linguistics per se and just altogether. No, we should keep the two together and maybe focus more on applications, variables, and how things are done in terms of language use, in terms of language learning, and language teaching. Now we move on to another school, which is in Australia, but there isn't a big difference, but we need to make a reference to this school, okay? Because it had an impact on the development of applied linguistics. So McNamara 2001 points to a different tradition for Australian applied linguistics in contrast to the ones for UK and US. So the Australians also have their own contribution. Australian applied linguistics made it modern languages its target of immigrants rather than English. Now the point in this is that in UK and North America, when they started discussing the issues or the problems related to language learning and immigrants, etc., they focused on English. How are we going to teach them English? That was the central issue. And then talking about language teaching, learning English, etc. What the Australians did is that they tried to focus on the language of the immigrants themselves. You see the point? They started to take into account the language of the immigrants, the Aborigines who lived in Australia. You know that in Australia there are those people who were the original inhabitants of Australia before the coming of the Europeans into Australia. You know? You know about Australia. You know Australia? I'm not talking about Austria. Australia, it is, you know, the Middle East, it will be a little bit south, in the south. Okay? Australia, it's a continent, yeah. Now, of course, when the Europeans went there, so there were people in there, like in the Indian states. Now, what happened for this Australian school of applied linguistics, they started to shift the focus a little bit, not only on focus on English, but also they tried to take into account the language of the not the immigrants, of the those yeah, the immigrants and the inhabitants, both of them. Okay, how they use language and how they learn language, etc., etc. So this is the contribution of this school. They focused on the languages of the target immigrants rather than English. The application of linguistics to the development of teaching materials and writing systems for Aboriginal languages was also focused on. I don't want to make it long for you, but you can refer to some points related to Australia, but the point is clear for you. So they were also involved in applied linguistics because they have some kind of similar environment like North America, like the UK, but they had their own specialties and peculiarities. You can go to the PDF or the booklet in order to see little points there in this regard. Okay. Another kind of association that played also a really important role in development of applied linguistics is the British Association of Applied Linguistics. The British Association of Applied Linguistics, referred to as BAL. So you have AL, and now you have, BAL, B-A-A-L, another association, British, was formally established in 1967. It was established in 1967 with the aim of advancing education, promoting, improving education, fostering and promoting by any lawful charitable means the study of, excuse me, my battery is about to die, just plug it in. We're about to finish, not much is left, so you can all leave. You are not the only ones who want to leave. So, this is the association. Now, one of the main contributions of this association, of this association is that they started to work more efficiently. Yeah, they were working efficiently, all of them in terms of research, etc. But this one wanted to be more efficient in terms of trying the way how to try to impose and to use the research findings and apply them in society. You see the point? So they were trying to be stronger and more efficient in terms of applying, imposing and using the findings of their research. How? It's via fostering and promoting any lawful charitable means. Okay, law, by this means of law. So they try to use law and try to come up with laws in order to apply their research. Another contribution of the school is that they also try to clarify and to highlight and to make it important and useful the idea of fostering the interdisciplinary nature and collaboration of applied linguistics. So they try to go and focus on this main feature of applied linguistics, because at the beginning there was a kind of the word shilly-shally, hesitation. Should we stay in linguistics and not go to applied linguistics? Should we forget about linguistics and go to applied linguistics? Should we focus on this discipline related to applied linguistics rather than the other one? This was a kind of discussion, hesitation going on throughout the history or development of applied linguistics. Now, they have reached, thanks to this association, BAL, 1994, they have reached a stage where the maturity, they feel it's mature, the idea is mature that applied linguistics is a kind of interdisciplinary nature. We can't forget about all disciplines come and work together, interact in applied linguistics. Another feature of the historical development of applied linguistics, at some points they focus on language teaching, other points language learning, other points language usage or language behavior or language use. So for example, Davis 2001, he notes that it was taken for granted in 1960s and 70s that applied linguistics was, in 1960s and 70s, applied linguistics was about language teaching. See? So it means that at some point, focus in one thing. Over the last 30 years, it became clear that those studying English language teaching had already studied aspects of linguistics. So now, these people who are involved in language teaching, they are not coming just tabula rasa, as they say in linguistics, okay? They are coming with some basic notions, with a good background in linguistics, which help them to go and venture into this discipline called applied linguistics. So linguistics is still useful. Lewis 2001 notes that applied linguistics is trying to resolve language-based problems that people encounter in the real world. So this is something that's repeated. Another point that we need to focus on regarding applied linguistics is this idea of distinguishing. Some people wanted to distinguish between two kinds of applied linguistics, please. Okay? So, like with Dawson, for example, with Dawson's distinction between linguistics applied and applied linguistics. This is one of the issues that was raised at some point in time, especially by Dawson. This is the one who tried to advocate this notion of distinguishing between linguistics applied and applied linguistics. Now, what does he mean, according to him? So the difference, can you follow with me? Can you keep up your attention, please? Try to keep your focus. You're going to go out and you're going to have plenty of time to do whatever you want. Good? So the differences between these modes of intervention is that in the case of linguistics applied, the assumption is that the problem can be reformulated by direct and unilateral application of concepts and terms deriving from linguistics inquiry itself. Linguistics applied, it takes concepts, focuses more on concepts and methodology and principles coming from linguistics. This is linguistics applied. That is to say, language problems are amenable to linguistic solutions. They focus more on linguistic solutions. In the case of applied linguistics, it is the other way around. In linguistics applied, he says, according to him, we try to come up with solutions and do the tools and everything, focusing on linguistics and try to solve problems. In applied linguistics, no, he says that we go outside of linguistics, forget a little bit about linguistics, go into other variables of society, psycholinguistics, psychology, pragmatics, and so on, try to language planning, and try to solve our problems. In the case of applied linguistics, intervention is crucially a matter of mediation. Applied linguistics has to relate to reconcile different representations of reality, the outside world. society, psychology, law, etc., including that of linguistics without excluding others. Okay, but he says and confesses that linguistics shouldn't be forgotten, even if we go into this direction. So this is another notion that you need to know, and that was advocated by Widowson, the distinction between linguistics applied and applied linguistics, and it somehow makes sense because that's how applied linguistics developed. As I told you, there was a kind of hesitation. Sometimes here, sometimes out, sometimes in linguistics, focus on other variables, and that's how he came up with these two concepts, linguistics applied and applied linguistics. So Davis, in relation to this concept, difference between linguistics applied and applied linguistics, Davis and Elder 2006 note that the linguistics applied view derives from the coming together of two traditions. The European tradition and the North American tradition. The European tradition, as you know, the most common figures, the most popular figures in it, Roman Jacobson, phonology, phonetics, phonology, basically. And you know that this guy was mainly, he focused, of course, on language per se. So this distinction that I'm telling you, linguistics applied and applied linguistics, it derives from combining two traditions. The tradition of Roman Jacobson in Europe, the North Americans were influenced by it, and the North American tradition of linguistic anthropological field. Because in North America at that time, they started learning about the culture, about the Indians, etc. There was a kind of development of this kind of linguistics, okay, anthropological field. So here in this field, there is some kind of going away from linguistics. We go into anthropology, we go into culture. So this distinction between linguistics applied and applied linguistics is a reflection of these two schools. The school coming from Europe, represented by Roman Jacobson, and the school of North America, okay, of linguistic anthropological field. You need to go into the booklet or other references to have more information on that. Now, concerning the last point, which we are not going to go into details, but just to refer to them, the subfields of applied linguistics. The subfields of applied linguistics, so number of them. There is the subfield of second language acquisition. Second language acquisition theory deals with the range of variables, in particular age of immersion, quantity of input, which may interactively determine the level of ultimate attainment. Second language acquisition, it means when adults, grown-ups, start learning a second language. All principles involved in there. Language assessment and testing. This is another subfield of applied linguistics. The theories and the principles related to how we can come up with a valid test for learners of a language. Language policy and planning. We have already talked about the issue of language of instruction, like we have now for Amazigh or for Arabic or etc. This is a subfield of applied linguistics. Lexicography, dealing with the vocabulary, etc. Dictionaries, that's right. Multilingualism, Because when we talk about language planning and policy, it has to do with multilingualism. Because if we didn't have the issue of multilingualism, the language planning policy wouldn't have been a problem. You have one language, and then the problem is solved. That language is used for learning, for teaching, everything. But we have, like in Morocco, is a kind of multilingual. So multilingualism, another subfield of applied linguistics. Corpus linguistics. Anybody who knows about corpus linguistics? Corpus linguistics has to do with collection of data and classifying it, and this. You will have the definition in the booklet. We are not going to deal with it, but just important for you to know that it is a subfield of applied linguistics. Other subfields are psycholinguistics, education, sociolinguistics, English studies. What we mean by English studies here, what you study in the Department of English, that's part of English studies, okay? And the study of English, the grammar of English, the literature of English, etc., etc. So, discourse studies, discourse analysis, that's another subfield of applied linguistics. Another subfield of applied linguistics, which is referred to as computer-assisted language learning, which is developing nowadays. The use of technology for improving learning and teaching of a language. It is referred to as CALL, computer-assisted language learning. In addition to others, of course. The last point, which we shouldn't forget, is the interdisciplinary nature of applied linguistics. There is some kind of interaction between all these subfields that I have just mentioned to you in the field of applied linguistics, and how all these are relevant for language teaching. There are some quotations in here, but because of time we can't go through them, but the idea is clear for you about interdisciplinary nature of applied linguistics. Now, the summary, you can have it later on the booklets, and I stop in here for this today's lecture.